This episode of the Party Loaded podcast is proudly sponsored by Audible.com. Check out their awesome catalogue of audiobooks with over 180,000 titles to choose from. And be sure to grab a free audiobook on us and support the show by visiting audibletrial.com/endgame.
Let's party.
Hello everybody and welcome to this Wednesday the 23rd of May to the Party Loaded podcast. This is of course your weekly hit of everything great in the world of video games. I am one of your hosts, but only one of them, Luke Retallick, partying up tonight with the lovely Christian. Hello.
Hello everyone.
And we also
That's
have
a very creepy introduction.
Yeah, well, you know, you do this. You do this. What are we up to? 128 times. You got to mix it up a little bit. Jam, how you doing?
Christian gets the nice adjectives.
No, you got the nice ones last week. You just glazed over it. I felt unappreciated. So.
Oh, good. Mission accomplished. I'm out.
All right. She gets what she deserves. All right. Anyway, so we're here again to chat about everything gaming and lots of fun stuff to talk about as always. We don't have any weird sort of soundbite things to compare this week, though. I don't know what's been kind of the big memes this week that have been doing the rounds. I haven't been paying attention. Anything notable?
You mean like the Yanni and Laurel thing?
Yeah.
I'm enjoying all like the memes based on that of things that like don't sound anything similar, or I've seen people just deconstructing that meme to the nth degree.
Yeah.
Oh dear.
I like once upon a time when memes were sort of a newish concept. They've always been around to a certain extent, but I think we've gone from a time where we had like one big meme that people would fixate on for like a month or so, like around the time of the Nyan Cat and the Honey Badgers stuff and all that kind of thing. To now, it seems like there's a new thing every couple of days. It's just getting crazy. So.
Yeah, I think like it was a big shift from YouTube video memes to like image macro memes and like short clips, like back when it was like YouTube clips like I Love Turtles and The Grape Lady and stuff like that. That was the primo meme days. It's too fast and hectic these days for me.
Yep, absolutely. It's the instant gratification of memes. People just need something fresh all the time. Actually, that reminds me. I know that Rooster Teeth did a recent special video series on the origin of memes, which I've been meaning to check out. So I might actually answer some of these questions. But we're not here to talk about memes. We're here to create them by talking about all sorts of random stuff. So I want to throw it to Christian tonight for kicking off our This Week in Gaming segment, because you've got a game on this list that I'm super keen to hear about. Did you get much time into BattleTech this week?
I didn't get a whole lot of time into it. I think I put probably 2 hours in, just enough to get through the like tutorial mission and the first like basic mission. Mm-hmm. I'm really enjoying it so far. So this BattleTech game is like turn-based strategy, but there's no like base building elements. It's like instanced missions with 3 or 4 mechs at a time. Mm-hmm. And the only other game, I played MechWarrior back in the day, but I've never played the BattleTech like tabletop game, so I'm not sure how like true it is to the tabletop game.
I never played the tabletop game, but I did play a whole bunch of the original MechWarrior 2 game back when I was much younger. Yeah. So
you'd see like similar stuff from MechWarrior, like the actual mech types, like the Timberwolf and the Goliath and stuff like that. And then the way that you have to manage your like heat sinks. So every time you discharge your weapons, it builds up like heat, and you need to like manage your mechs, make sure they don't overheat by switching off certain weapon systems. You can't just go full bore all the time. And then you've also got like armor facings, like you can get your arms damaged or your legs damaged, and certain weapon systems are equipped to different slots, and there's a bit of like positioning and tactics that goes on there. But yeah, I'm really liking it. I will say that I know that the massive part of the game that I haven't even touched is the actual like customization and actually getting new weapons and getting new mechs and in like having a persistent campaign. I haven't touched any of that stuff yet, so all I can really comment on is the basic combat mechanics. But I'm definitely going to play more of it. But yeah, it's good
I've
fun.
heard that one of the things that's very difficult to do with the mech builds and fit outs in that game is to actually have like symmetry with the way that your mech is set up. Like the same weapon on each arm. I don't know if you've encountered any of that yet.
No, because I haven't got to whatever part of the game you actually start doing that. Like the missions I'm doing are still, I've been given a set of mechs just to use, and I haven't been able to customize them yet.
Right.
So I'm sure that'll come. It's probably just around the corner. I just need to play a bit more, and I'll get to all that stuff.
Yeah. Well, I mean, hopefully the missions are good because from what I remember of that universe, the narrative element and the huge amount of lore that kind of is the foundation of it is just one of the biggest selling points. It's just massive.
Yeah, it's super cool. It's like super Game of Thrones is like the vibe I'm getting because it's set in the future, but people are divided into houses, and the mech warriors are kind of like the elite knight class in the world, and like the mech that you've got to start with is like your family heirloom that's been passed down, and you're from like a disgraced house, but you've still got your like relic mech left over, that sort of thing. So yeah, I'm really digging the lore.
Yeah,
Game of Thrones. The cutscenes are kind of nice. Yeah. It doesn't have like fully animated cutscenes, but it's got this nice kind of like artworky, not watercolory, but kind of like a pastel comic style to the cutscenes that works quite well.
Oh, okay. Like a slideshow as opposed to...
Yeah.
Oh, sweet. And so that's just a pick-up on Steam, I assume? How much was that setting you back?
That was actually, I backed the Kickstarter many moons ago and pretty much forgot about it, and then got my key sent a couple of weeks ago. So I don't actually know how much that costs because I just got my key.
Just time.
I don't think it's too much.
Yeah.
But yes, it is on Steam though.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah, and I've been hearing a bit about that recently. People seem to be pretty positive on it, so that's good to see.
Yeah. I'll probably have more to say about it next week. And the only other game I've been playing is Magic Arena. I mentioned that a little bit last week. But yeah, I gave up on that pretty quickly because I found that it wasn't really doing anything for me that Hearthstone isn't. And it's just like, I don't have time for two big online card games, and Magic's just super complicated. So yeah, it's all right, but Hearthstone's my one and only when it comes to card games.
So you heard it here first. Magic the Gathering, it's a poor man's Hearthstone.
I mean, that's a controversial take. I wouldn't
make that take because that's fucking asinine.
Yeah, no way.
And yet you did.
Yes, I did.
I played a tiny bit of Destiny 2 as well. I'll just mention that, but I just started playing through the new DLC like campaign content and have pretty much nothing to say because from what I could tell, there was nothing new to talk about. I just did a couple of story missions where I fought the same enemy types in environments that felt the same as the rest of the campaign. So yeah, nothing much to say.
But the Hive Troopers are made of ice, Christian. It's totally different.
Ooh, totally different.
Javelin. Did you use a javelin?
I did.
That's
I guess
cool.
Yeah, I guess.
That's about it.
Yeah.
No, I've been keen to get back to Destiny, but I got a little frustrated with it in terms of the progression because, and we'll talk about this a bit in the news, but there's some hard gates on how far you can actually progress doing the sort of standard activity loops in that game at the moment. They need to implement some fixes before it's actually, achievable to get to the levels required for some of the fun new activities like the raid lair and that kind of stuff. So yeah. I'm not the kind of player that can just play for hours on end grinding exotics to try and get the power level up. Like I need something that's a bit more sustainable than that to actually keep my attention. So
is it the sort of thing where you can progress by grinding for hours, or do you have to like wait for weekly resets before you're able to?
Weekly resets seem like the most reliable way to do it because you get X number of sort of tasks each week that give you the powerful engrams that give you a higher level sort of gear drop. But from what I understand, exotics kind of do the same thing. I could be totally wrong about this, but this is the way I sort of perceive it. So when you drop an exotic, I think it actually does drop at a higher power level to what you currently are reading as. So if you were to theoretically just like grind for exotics, you could do it over a long period of time, but the drop rate on those, as you know, is pretty rare.
Yeah.
So yeah. Not exactly the way that I want to do it, but Destiny's fun. Like I think that now that the shine has kind of worn off, it's something that I can't just play like days on end. I can jump in for short bursts and with groups of friends especially. But playing solo just to achieve a goal is a lot harder to motivate yourself to do these days. So
that's the only reason I really bothered playing it was to try and get to the point where I can play the raid layer, because that's where the fun is at, really.
Exactly.
But it's a shame. It's a shame for a game for me to like want to have to just grind through the new content just to get to like a portion of it. But yeah, it's just the way it is.
It was always the problem I had with the most recent sort of WoW expansions as well. Like usually like a World of Warcraft big expansion would come out, and the most exciting content in that is typically the raids or the high level sort of quest sort of stuff. But it just took so long to get to it that, you really had to grind through a ton of the expansion before you actually got to the good bit. And, especially if you didn't use any of the character boosts to get a character up to the level required to play that content. Because if you were starting something from scratch, then, good luck. It's like 100 levels of advancement to get through. So, yeah, I don't know. It's tough to gate content behind high level limits, but by the same token, that's end game stuff, and it kind of does need to be hard to get there to have the same prestige to it. So I don't know, it's tricky. So Jam, you sort of said you were super boring this week. I did play a little bit of Overwatch with you, which was fun. So yeah, just good.
Yeah, I jumped back in a little bit today too, which I'll talk about later.
Mm-hmm.
But nothing super cool. I think I played some PUBG on the weekend.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
About it.
You've been doing other nerding, so that's okay.
Other nerding, yeah, went and saw Deadpool 2. That was amazing.
Yep, I have still not done so. I'm super devo about that.
I'm going to spoil it all for you.
Oh, no, screw you. Don't do that. I'll spoil.
It is fantastic.
I'll spoil Solo for you. I'm pretty sure Chewie lives.
I don't care. I don't care. I'm hearing very average things about that.
We'll see.
Yeah.
So, I have a little confession to make, and this sort of began immediately after we finished recording last week. So I think it was literally about half an hour after we wrapped up the show, and I was looking for something to play sort of late at night because I don't sleep because I'm a vampire, and I eventually settled on something that you and Memo have been sort of pushing me to get back into for a little while, Jam, and I haven't bitten yet, and that was jumping into our Minecraft Sky Factory 3 server.
Whee.
So I hit up the people in our group that had the access that night, and I managed to jump in. And I remember now why I didn't want to do it initially, because it was falling down a giant drug hole of Minecraft goodness that I'm never going to get my way out of again. It's just horrific how addictive that game is to me. It's just absolutely horrific. So
it's glorious.
Yeah, I've been working and then coming home and having really late nights playing this game pretty much every day for the last week. And if playing the Sky Factory mod wasn't enough, I'm actually playing a second Minecraft mod at the same time.
Oh no!
Yeah, so
which one?
Well, there's a new one that actually just released this week, in fact, by the Feed the Beast crew, called Continuum. So for anyone who isn't familiar with Minecraft, sort of outside of the vanilla game, there's a massive Minecraft modding community centered around Feed the Beast, or FTB. And they sort of collectively put together a whole range of different individual mods, and often sort of packs where they've cherry-picked various mods, combined them together, and done some sort of skinning and coding over the top of that to make them sort of mesh a bit better. And that's kind of what Sky Factory 3 is. So Continuum is very much like that, but the best way to describe it is it's kind of like a mod pack with some of the latest tech mods that Feed the Beast has done, and a lot of it is recipe-based, intended to sort of make progression more granular. It is very much expert-level Minecraft. Like, the overall goal is sort of to make progression like really rewarding by making it challenging and tough, and you have to get a lot of new materials that didn't exist in the game before. There's a lot of sort of building molds and templates for various different tools and things like that. To give you an example, like making a simple shovel in Minecraft is usually just getting a stick and a bit of stone and combining those two and making a shovel. In Continuum, you actually have to craft the shovel head before you can even attach it to a stick. And, that's the kind of level of detail they go into for this thing. It's really awesome. So, but yeah, it's trying to make it like a way that it's not a burden to the player. Like, tedium is not challenge. They're actually trying to make it challenging. So, and for the most part, I think they've succeeded. It's really, really fun. And I've actually been watching a few Minecraft streams lately just to watch what people have been building for this pack and sort of seeing some of the inspiration, which has been really cool. But, yeah, no, the majority of my time has been Sky Factory, though. I've discovered some really wacky tools and things in that mod pack that have just blown me away. So just to give you a taste, over the last few days, I have built a Bifrost bridge, like a la Thor, connected to my base in the game, which basically is a force field projector that creates a holographic bridge that I've coded with different sort of elements of the rainbow spectrum, so it actually looks like the rainbow bridge. It's awesome. I've also created a giant void mining laser. I'm currently researching jetpacks, working out how to build that, and I've discovered that apparently you can actually create a railgun in the game. So
yes.
Oh man,
Minecraft.
Yep.
It sure is different from when I played it.
Yep.
I've seen the railgun in action on that server. It's hilarious.
Yep. It looks like a lot of fun. So I'm not even finished with some of the stuff I want to do with this pack. So I'm probably going to be spending a bunch more time in that in the next week or so. I'm kind of I'm very much sort of conscious that there's new games that I should be playing at the moment. I say should. My conscience is saying I should, but whose standards am I holding myself to other than my own? So Yakuza 6 is sitting on my desk, tantalizingly just out of reach while I'm still addicted to this damn thing. But Minecraft, man, it's a 10-year-old game, close to at this point, and it's still one of the best games I've ever played. It's just amazing how this thing has gone over the years.
Yeah.
So yeah,
no, because it's got no limits.
It really
it's just
doesn't.
so free.
It really doesn't. I mean, and add mods and just holy shit, there really are no limits to this thing. So yeah, I'm already sort of planning out potential video content based around some of the Minecraft stuff at the moment. So I'm just gonna keep falling into this pit. Just pull me out eventually, but let me play for a bit longer, okay? It's gonna be fun. All right. Anyway, let's. I think we should move on to the news because otherwise I'm going to be talking Minecraft all night. So, all right, what do we got tonight? We have probably the big thing to kick off with, which sort of was happening just as we wrapped up the show last week. The big Call of Duty Black Ops 4 reveal happened. So, did you guys happen to catch anything about this during the week?
I did not, because I'm not a COD Blops fan, really.
Yeah. Look, I will admit, I'm typically not either. And I mean, we've gotten into this pattern every year where, we tend to have the latest Battlefield game and the latest, Call of Duty game. And it's kind of background static for the most part for, I think, a lot of us who aren't into that sort of scene heavily. That being said, the stuff I've been hearing about Black Ops 4 is interesting at the very least. And I'm being tempted by it. So the biggest thing is that they've actually moved away from the single player sort of narrative campaign, and that doesn't exist in Black Ops 4 at all this time. And from what I've heard, there's a bit of controversy around that because it seems that may not have always been the intent, that they actually were working on a campaign, but for whatever reason, it just didn't quite come together along the timeline.
Yeah, I've heard that.
Yeah. So what they've actually sort of pitched instead sounds really good though. So I'm wondering whether it's a bad thing or not. I would probably feel better about it if it was always the intent and that was kind of the design concept that they started with, as opposed to switching gears partway through. But that being said, I mean, multiplayer is the focus. They've got zombie mode coming back, which apparently this time actually takes place on a ship, like a Titanic style sort of field of battle as one of the maps. So you're basically, doing a zombie hunt or, trying to survive the rush while on a boat, which sounds really cool. I haven't seen that kind of thing in a shooter before as a fresh new idea. So I don't know. That sounds like it could be all right. And surprise, surprise, Black Ops Battle Royale. Who didn't see that one coming? So
yeah.
So
do you know how many players in the Battle Royale mode? Have they said?
I'm pretty sure it's 100. So
really,
yeah,
that's what I was wondering about with Call of Duty. Is Call of Duty traditionally hasn't been big player numbers. It's been 16, that sort of thing.
Yeah, and the thing that's a point of difference between Call of Duty typically versus Battlefield especially is that Battlefield is kind of built for those large scale engagements. A lot of their weapon set is based around that ranged sort of impact
and map size.
And they have vehicles, they have planes, they have tanks, that sort of thing. Yeah,
exactly. But Black Ops is typically Call of Duty, but Black Ops especially is usually these close range messy firefights that are over in 3 seconds flat kind of thing. So
yeah, manic.
Yeah, so I don't know about that. I mean, they're definitely sort of changing the key focus of the game a bit to accommodate that. So, but I mean, that being said, the gameplay of COD games is usually pretty smooth, and I do like the way that they play as shooters. So, I don't know. I'm willing.
I'm really curious to see what it ends up being like, especially that Battle Royale mode. If it is a massive map with 100 players.
I'm generally looking at the battle royale genre at the moment, who the big players are and kind of what they're offering to create like a differing, competing offering for the market out there. I think it's clear why Fortnite's doing so well versus PUBG, because they are significantly different. I mean, Fortnite's got the more sort of comic-y feel to it. It's a bit more wacky and zany. It's free, which obviously helps a lot. They had the multi-platform approach, and obviously their sort of marketing on Twitch and so forth has really gotten them in the lead as well. As far as PUBG goes, it doesn't have the same polish that Fortnite does as a game. Like, it's still a bit janky in places. So when I think of like the modern military sort of vibe that PUBG relies on to sort of get its audience, like Black Ops 4 is going to be its major competitor for sure. Like if Black Ops can actually nail a battle royale offering for their Blackout mode, and it's got the smooth gameplay that Blops offers and also the existing Call of Duty audience, I think that PUBG could actually have a real fight on its hands with this one. So, yeah, will be interesting. Don't know. Anyway, that's my thoughts. So, what else we got? Jam, through you.
Yes. Another cool announcement in the last week that came out. Microsoft have developed an accessibility controller, an adaptive controller for people with disabilities. It's really neat. It's this really large rectangular unit with some big buttons, but the key thing about it is it's got an amazing number of inputs. I think a couple of USBs and 19 3.5mm jacks, so that you can plug in any kind of peripheral for any kind of input that you need for the controller.
Oh, wow.
So there's an input for each different button type or joystick type, so that people can basically adapt their playstyle to their abilities and still enjoy the games that they love.
Yeah.
Which is extraordinary. It's out later this year. I think it's $100 American in price, which is fantastic. It's not too ridiculous. And it looks like it's been really well thought out from what little I know of, people who struggle with these kinds of issues playing games. But it's wonderful. I mean, you see incredible players playing like PUBG with controllers designed to interact with their mouth online.
Yeah.
Like, imagine what they're going to be able to do when they can just refine it to the nth degree to work for them. It's really neat.
From a design perspective, I guess the problem with accessibility controllers is always that everybody has a different kind of disability. Usually, there's no sort of average you can design for.
Yeah. Which is why this is incredible.
Yeah, because it's so modular.
The core unit, it can. They're trying to support so many different peripherals, so that you can use any kind of joystick, oversized button, anything.
Even like there's a Wii nunchuck looking thing that's on the picture they showed off, and it's really cool that Microsoft has, it's like open source, like anyone can. It supports third party plugins, and anyone can design like new stuff to plug into it. There's nothing proprietary or like locked down about it. So they just don't care. They just want it to do its job, and they're not really fussed about other people making money off selling third party things for it. So it's really cool.
Yeah, that's really good.
It's proactive and super supportive.
Definitely something that they don't need to be competitive market leader in. It's kind of more of a goodwill gesture, for their image and brand more than anything, I think. So
for sure.
Yeah.
And speaking of brands, there's a big change on the distant horizon, but still on the horizon for PlayStation, which is in a recent investors call. One of the Sony heads mentioned that PlayStation 4 is heading into the end of its life cycle.
I literally pictured you doing the finger wags there.
Because it got taken a bit out of proportion, I think, by some articles sort of saying that they're shutting down the PS4, but from what I can tell, they're still looking at like at least 3 years of life for the console, and it's not the sort of thing where they haven't announced that PS4 is on its way out or that they're getting ready to release the PS5. It's just entering like a certain phase in its life cycle. So I think Andrew House, the then CEO, it said that previously the PS4 was in its harvest period, which is where they slow down production a bit and just try and reap benefits. And now it's sort of moving into its more sort of sunset phase, is what they would call it. But it's PlayStation 4 is not going anywhere, but they're acknowledging that there is going to be a change on the horizon in a couple of years still.
The thing that surprises me the most about this isn't that it's happening, it's that they actually mentioned it at all. because the nature of games media, especially, like any hint of this gets out there, particularly up in the lead up to E3 and big sort of landmark times of year where people start looking at the next sort of stage on the horizon and that kind of thing. People get a whisper of this, then everyone's chicken littling. Like the sky is suddenly falling, PS4's dying. It probably does them more damage as a brand to actually confirm to a certain extent that is the plan, without assigning a timeline to it, which of course they're never going to do. But I'm surprised they said anything. So, yeah.
Well, it's probably strategic.
Possibly. I mean, at the end of the day, I think developers will get wind of it anyway, because if there's like new stuff that they need to start testing for with games development, then people will find out about that. That can't be, kept secret for too long. I know Sony's very good at locking down their hardware in terms of like test units and production models that are out there, particularly PlayStation VR. I know that some people we've had contact with managed to get various different looks at things that were getting built, and the NDAs behind that, and the level of security was insane and very, very intense. But it eventually gets out. Like someone does say something eventually. So yeah,
I think a part of this too is the difference between like business talk and like investor talk and like public relations, where a lot of the time these like snippets of information will come out of like journalists sort of sitting in on investors' calls, where it's not meant to be a time for announcements. Sony didn't intend to announce the end of the PlayStation 4 life cycle. It's just like a detail in their investors report.
Yeah,
but it's still. They should anticipate the many ways that this can be taken out of proportion and blown up into the public sphere. But yeah, it's having to walk a fine line between keeping investors happy and being like transparent with their shareholders, and then managing public relations at the same time.
Yeah. And saturation is a thing. I mean, once everyone has a PlayStation 4, you're not going to keep expecting to sell the same number of units.
No, that's true. And given that
you've got to shift focus
so much, yeah.
You have to shift focus at some point in the life cycle. It's a practical thing.
Makes sense. So the PS4 being one thing, I also saw the bit of news drop this week about Sony confirming that they've shut down the Vita production. So this is something that probably won't be too surprising because the Vita's certainly been on its way out for a little while. But, final confirmation has come through now. The Vita is no more. It is, if you still got Vitas in stores, obviously you can pick one up. It's a weird console. Like, there's been a lot of love for the Vita that I keep on hearing from a lot of places, despite the lack of support.
Well, it's like the PlayStation 2. Like, that hung on for a long time because of the love out there.
Yeah, but I mean, I think the big difference is the PlayStation 2 actually did really, really well for its console cycle. Like, it was probably one of the top PlayStation periods in terms of how the market was going, because then they had the competition with the 360 the next cycle and kind of lost their market share.
Yeah.
But like the Vita, if I was going to compare it to anything, I think it's almost like the Wii U situation, where it was like a weird device. It didn't quite find its market. People were a bit confused about what the...
And suddenly they got it?
Yeah, exactly.
And went,
yeah.
I like this.
Towards the end of its life cycle, people started realizing, hey, this is actually really useful. I can play PS4 games. I can play Vita games on my TV through PS4, and however that share functionality works, I actually don't know, but I know there was some compatibility. But I mean, people seem to really like it. It's just, it was an unfortunate case of too little too late with it finding its audience. But yeah, anyway, so the Vita will, have its wind down, and that's that, I guess. So, yeah.
Well, something that's getting a bit of a fresh news cycle in its life. No Man's Sky is about to debut on Xbox One, and they've announced full multiplayer.
That shocked the hell out
of me. Which is amazing. I know. It's something we've been waiting for so long. And the first thing I was like, oh, Memo, we have to get back into this now. I've been meaning to for a while. I've kept it updated. But as soon as this comes out, it's similar to Stardew Valley, really. Yeah. The second that beta launched, we were like both jumping in there, wanting to farm together. I'm going to be all over it. So on July 24, when it launches on Xbox One, PlayStation and PC are going to get their multiplayer patch.
The thing that surprised me the most is I'm pretty sure that the team from Hello Games originally said that this would never happen. So...
Well, I guess, the game has won.
Yeah.
That. Because it's what's been missing. I mean, it's wonderful exploring and going around and doing all of these things. I haven't even seen all of the new functionality. But sharing that with someone in this kind of game...
Makes me super happy.
The things you discover and the things you create, that that just adds precious, moments.
Yeah.
That's going to make it so special.
It's always struck me as a game that is perfect for multiplayer. I mean, you have ship-to-ship dogfighting in this game. How is that not perfect for multiplayer? Holy shit.
And base building and trading and I need to farm while Mimo goes and gets lost on another planet. And I have to go and rescue her because that is what will happen. Yeah.
I mean, it's
guaranteed.
It's not quite Minecraft in space, but it's probably the closest thing we're going to get at that quality.
It is. It is. She'll get lost.
Yeah.
Hi, Mimo.
Yeah.
Love you, Mimo.
So V from Stirfire, of course, is a huge advocate for No Man's Sky, and I've been sort of saying during the week that I would actually be willing to jump in and play with her after the multiplayer goes live. But I've since realised that she's a massive PS4 player, and we'd probably be on PC because that's where we picked it up originally, isn't it? So unless it's cross-platform, there might be an issue there. But I don't know, maybe it will be cross-platform. I haven't mentioned anything about that. Well, we'll have to wait and see.
Oh, I don't hold your breath.
No,
Matt.
No, probably not.
But yeah, it's exciting. It's exciting. I think it's going to breathe new life. It's going to bring it all back into focus.
Yeah.
For the gamers.
Mm-hmm. All right, well, on to something completely different. We got a bit of update around the Fortnite this week. Now, this is something that stands out as pretty massive. Epic is reportedly putting up 100 million. You can just picture me doing the pinky finger thing.
Yeah,
for
I can.
Fortnite's first year of esports tournaments. So Epic are going hard,
huge.
And they want this to be a thing. So I want to put this into perspective because I did a bit of research today into terms of how this ranks up to the other popular esports sort of market leaders. Now, Dota 2 is the front runner in terms of money up for tournaments. They have had the largest prize pool after Dota, because Dota's about 141 million. So Fortnite, if it does go ahead with 100 million, then that places it at number 2. And then League of Legends is, a fair bit after that at around 53, 54 million annually.
God, that is such a solid entry.
Yeah.
Is this 100 million for a prize pool or 100 million like for their to spend on their esports for the year?
It's not for a single event. This is across whatever number of tournaments they're going to run throughout the year as part of their annual structure.
It's the prize pools. It's not like running the event.
No.
Right.
This is
it is 100 million full prize pools across the events.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Wow.
It's huge.
Just crazy. So, I mean, some of the other big players in terms of large sort of prize pools, you've got, CSGO, of course, continues to be a leader in that field. StarCraft 2 still kicking along at a pretty high pool. And Heroes of the Storm is right up there as well. So the games that aren't mentioned on the report that I'm looking at are Hearthstone and Overwatch, which actually surprised me a little bit because I know that the Hearthstone prize pool is quite large. And Overwatch, I would assume Overwatch's prize pool must be decent, but I don't know, maybe because of the team approach being a bigger thing for them, it's more around the spectacle and less about the raw cash on offer for the various different winners. Because there's a lot of sponsorship deals and that kind of stuff going on where there's income outside of the sort of prizes themselves. I don't quite know how that works. So, but yeah, there's some pretty big earners there. But, if people wanted to become professional Fortnite players, it seems like that might actually be a thing. So,
well, something else that's happening in Overwatch. Yay anniversary event. Have you seen all of the outfits?
I haven't seen all of them, but I've seen most of them. There's some cool stuff there.
I think I've seen all legendaries, yeah. Orisa looks so good.
Looks so awesome. I can't wait. So I jumped on earlier. I opened my free loot box. Did not have the Orisa skin. It had one of the old Pharah ones, though, which is quite cool. I like that they've cycled in old event stuff.
Yeah, it's the first chance to get that stuff.
I haven't had. Yeah, it's really cool. But Doomfist looks pimp.
Dapper Doomfist.
Symmetra looks amazing.
Yeah.
It's got some good ones. And also there's a new multiplayer deathmatch map. Petra? Is it Petra?
Yeah.
I just played it.
Petra, yeah.
Yes. It's free-for-all deathmatch, and it's very well designed for that. It is incredibly three-dimensional. There's no little nooks where you can really sort of back up and camp or anything like that. There's every point has like multiple egress methods. It's really hard to watch your back, and I was so not prepared. I'm not good with deathmatch stuff ordinarily. I just kept getting wasted because I was running around checking the map out. I think I ran off.
I'm not a deathmatch fan.
I ran off the edge twice.
Oh, no.
I was negative kills because I'm an idiot. And I was playing Orisa to start with, just my old go-to, and I switched to Soldier and did a little better. But there were people on there who'd clearly been playing since it unlocked because they were moving around the map extraordinarily. It's got like bounce pads to help you navigate quickly up
Oh, sweet. I love that
to
mechanic.
higher points. It's a really good map for it. I don't think it wouldn't work with any other game mode type. Oh, maybe Capture the Flag? Nah, I don't know. But it's neat. It's a nice, fresh, new little addition, but I don't think I'll be playing it much. It's just not my thing. I ended up jumping back into quick play immediately afterward to try and start cranking out those loot boxes because I need some of this content.
Did you see the lore conspiracy
it's really
theory
neat.
stuff that came out today around that Petra map?
No?
No, so apparently there's like some cave paintings or sculptures or something on computer terminals in that map that actually links to a number of other maps already in Overwatch and actually has some sort of like linked narrative. So
I wasn't looking that closely, but that is cool.
yeah, I don't know the
love how they
details,
work
but
that stuff in.
you can look it up. I'm sure there's a Kotaku article somewhere about it, but yeah, like it makes you want like realize how much of this stuff is planned out like well in advance, that they're hiding Easter eggs across multiple maps that only suddenly become a thing when a new one drops. It's just like that kind of forethought is weird.
Another cool thing they're doing with this release is that they've got they're sort of relaunching, and they've got a Legendary Edition version of the game that you can get on any platform you want. And it throws in a bunch of Legendary skins, and epic skins for you as part of
That's
it, so
cool.
that you can actually start the game not with, just the default skins. But if you're investing now for the first time, you can get you a little, I guess, head start on your collection,
That's awesome.
which is neat.
So if it's just skins, I assume it's not in the loot boxes themselves. I wonder if you get to pick them. That would be curious.
That would make some people very upset, I think.
It's probably just a set bunch like it was with the Origin edition, where you
Yeah.
got like the exclusive pre-order skins. It's probably just like that, but they've handpicked a bunch of skins
Yeah,
for it.
and some skins from, sourced from some of their other games, or inspired by some of their other games.
Yeah.
Throwing some of those into. But yeah, it's neat.
They
I
also-
need to smash this game out over the next couple of weeks.
They've launched a competitive deathmatch mode, haven't they, as well? I've read that it's season 1 for competitive deathmatch.
Oh, really?
I saw a
Yeah.
button that said something about 10 placements, and I promptly ignored it.
Yeah, so there's
It's
two
not for me.
competitive modes now.
That is a game mode that I will never touch.
I'm not going to touch it
Yeah.
either.
I
But at
just
least you
want
can't
Mayhem
blame
to be
teammates.
available 24/7.
Yeah.
Like, that would be my go-to if it was there all the time. It makes me sad that it's not.
Yeah.
Junkenstein's Revenge was active when I logged on earlier as one of the replays.
They made a tiny little change to Ana that I think is funny, that in deathmatch mode, but only in deathmatch mode, she can nano boost herself.
Ah.
Because if she
That's
couldn't, then there'd be no point. Like, she'd be useless without it. But it's interesting that it's just for deathmatch mode, though.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, just while we're talking about shooters, and I mentioned before that Destiny was going to see some updates soon to fix some of its power ramp sort of system stuff. So it's been getting, as happens every time there's an addition or an expansion to Destiny, it doesn't take long for people to come out of the woodwork and start complaining about, the various different choices that have been made. So it seems like in about 2 weeks, we're going to see an update to fix one of the biggest things that have been complained about. So Heroic Strikes is something that has earned a large amount of the players' ire since the expansion launch. So basically, the situation at the moment is that the recommended power level to get into Heroic Strikes is actually higher than the level of loot that the Heroic Strikes themselves are dropping. So it's kind of like as soon as you get good enough to get in there, there's no point because it's not going to give you anything useful. So what they're going to do now is they're going to actually improve the reward for Heroics, and every 3 to 5 Heroic Strikes that a player does is actually going to reward them with a 360 rated piece of loot, which is higher than typically the 350 that's the recommended power level for those activities, which is good. Like it's not making it every drop, it's giving you a chance of getting it, but again, they need this progression sort of step to help people get to some of that later content, because it's just too difficult and grindy at the moment. And it's kind of like what I was saying about that Minecraft stuff before, like tedium does not equal skill. You need to have something that is, reward for effort in a reasonable manner, not over the top. So
Is that the new cap, 360?
380, I think, is the cap. 385.
380?
I don't even know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd have to check that. I'm pretty sure it's 385 is the hard cap. So, yeah.
So you'll eventually outlevel those rewards still.
Yeah, which is kind of how it was before. It was usually about a 20-point gap, which you kind of, close that by doing the regular weekly stuff and the raid content.
Yeah.
Which I think is about right. Like 20 levels for that top tier is about fine, I think. So, yeah. So that's good. Like I might... I don't know. I might hold off and jump back in then. We'll see.
Have you seen the new Iron Banner emote?
Yes. The
new exotic
one?
emote that costs $10 that you can't actually get from playing. You have to pay for.
Yeah, that sucks.
Bit odd.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Odd choice.
It is a cosmetic though, so I'm like, it's...
Yeah, so be it. But like $10?
Yeah. It's no
And
Pink
Iron Banner is
Mercy,
supposed
that's
to
for
be
sure.
about rewarding skill and recognizing skill. And if you get the things from Iron Banner, it's because you're skilled.
Yes.
But wait.
True.
Your credit card. Oh, exceptional skill.
Yep.
Yeah, the only excuse for that would be if it was a charity emote, but
Yes.
sound like it.
I did get the Mercy skin for charity in the
yay,
end.
me too.
Well
Even though I
done.
never play Mercy.
Yeah. They made
quite pretty.
stupid amounts of money for that. Like they got up to about 10
it's wonderful.
million in fundraising, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's nuts.
So good.
Yeah. All right. Well, other stuff that made me happy this week, I saw a release about Yakuza. The rest of the saga is coming to PS4, so that made me very, very happy. So just as a brief recap, we currently on PS4 have Yakuza 6, which recently released, of course, the Song of Life, which is the new one. Yakuza 0, which came out last year, and Yakuza Kiwami, which is basically the remake of Yakuza 1. Using the new engine that was in Yakuza 0. Now, we know that Kiwami 2 is coming out later this year, around August, I think, which, again, Kiwami basically means extreme, from what I understand. So it's like Yakuza Extreme, like the remake of the original. So updated assets, new bits added to the game, a bit of new narrative, new side missions, all that sort of stuff. It's a true remake in the best sense, that they've actually done a good job with it, used updated engine and that sort of stuff. So Kiwami 2 is going to use the new Dragon engine that Yakuza 6 has been built on. But now they've confirmed that 3, 4, and 5 are also going to receive a similar treatment. So I don't know if they're going to use the exact same game engine and how much extra stuff is going to be added to them. But it seems that they've got some sort of timeline where over the next couple of years, they're going to close out the rest of the series and make the entire lot, all 7 games, available on one console, which is a very good move. And that makes me super happy. So, yeah, because those games are good. So, more Yakuza.
They haven't technically announced it for the West yet. They've only announced it for Japan.
It will come to the West.
It will, but there'll be like the extra year lag for each one, like there has been so far.
Yeah. I hope it's not too long. Like, I think they've been closing that gap a little bit, but you just don't know, do you? So,
Yeah. And then the last piece of news for tonight is I'm very happy about, which is that Devolver Digital, which are a wicked indie publisher, have announced that they're bringing their hilarious stage show back to E3 this year, their press conference. Did either of you watch last year's Devolver Digital conference?
Oh, shit, yes.
It was so good. So, like, before they even started, they had this pre-conference Twitch stream that was just, I think it was actually written by some Adult Swim writers, and it was crazy and hilarious.
It was very Adult Swim, actually. That's a great analogy. Yeah.
I think it was actually like co-produced by Adult Swim, perhaps.
Would not surprise me.
But then, and then their press conference actually continued the mayhem, and they had just this weird, like, absurdist humor with gore and like a fever dream, and there were a couple of brief clips of actual games, but it was mostly just this sort of meta kind of piss take about E3 conferences. And it wasn't even actually live. It was all pre-recorded, but it was hilarious. And they're bringing it back, and they have said that they will have more actual game content in this conference. But I'm sure there'll still be weird shenanigans and fever dream-esque abstract Dali moments.
Yeah. So Jam and anybody else that didn't see last year's one can recommend. You should go and watch it.
Yeah. Oh, it's a good piece of content just to go back and watch anytime. It's fantastic.
Don't expect to be entirely informative as far as new game releases or any of that sort of content goes. It's just pure entertainment, but it's good. It's a good time.
Awesome.
Yeah. All right. Well, speaking of having a good time, I would love to think that I can continue to have a good time playing games with you guys for many decades to come. But what is that actually going to look like? So
horrifying.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. So our main topic for tonight is we're actually going to sort of cast our view to the far, far future, probably less of a far future for some of us. Yes, I'm old. And actually have a bit of a chat about what growing old with games actually means to us. So, it's a bit different. Like, I don't know if we're all comfortable sharing our ages, but we're all sort of, mid to late 30s at the moment. And, without giving away exact numbers.
Oh, secrets.
Secrets, yeah. Now, I'm being the sort of later of that group. Now, I'm often accused as the old man of the group, and I think that's for many other reasons other than just games. But I think that it actually kind of does play into some of my gaming taste a little bit and things that you guys hang crap on me about. But it's an actual topic too. Like, we could talk about like why this is a thing. Like, why do we actually change as we grow up and what actually is different from when we were playing games as kids. So yeah, how does age affect our gaming? Who wants to pick up with first thoughts?
Well, what I was thinking first of all is, before we go forward, I want to think about the changes so far and then how that could continue. So, like, do you guys think that your gaming taste has changed significantly over the last 10 years? And do you think you're on like a trend that's going to continue forward as far as changes go?
Oh, that's interesting. I don't know. Over the last 10 years, I would say.
Well, or 10, 20, just since you were young, basically.
20 more so, definitely. Yeah, I think I have a greater appreciation for the details in games now, whereas I used to just want to sort of smash through them 20 odd years ago. I don't know.
I'm going to throw a question at you though, Jam, because I think this might be something that applies to all of us. I think that we on one hand have the differences that come with growing older and sort of looking at ways we played games as kids versus now. But we especially also have this other factor in that we actually are game critics once a week and actually talk about this from a whole different perspective than a games hobbyist would. So, there's an extra layer of detail that we kind of consider when it comes to the way that we play games and think about them as we play them, where maybe we're a little bit more cognizant of some of the stuff that goes into these games.
I don't think so.
You don't think so?
Not for me. Not for me personally, no.
You've always been pretty aware of this stuff
what I
anyway.
don't like.
Yeah.
No, you're assuming I'm an extremely, capable, rehearsed, analytical type of podcaster person, but I'm not. I rock up and I talk shit.
It's not so much that. I think it's more just the psychological filter that sort of comes on when we actually do engage in regular conversation about stuff. So, yeah.
Yeah, maybe. But for the age thing, I mean, that's been more recently. But I don't think my tastes have changed since we started podcasting, particularly.
Okay, all right.
Whereas I think even in the last 10 years, I don't know. I'd say the biggest change that's happened to my gaming is having my group of friends all migrate to PC gaming 3 or 4 years ago. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden, there was a whole bunch of multiplayer games that, I have lots of fun playing with you guys regularly. Whereas before that, it was much more my own thing. It's the types of game I enjoyed playing haven't changed, but my focus has shifted to playing more with friends. Whereas 20 years ago, I was a lot more simplistic. I probably didn't stray too far. There probably also wasn't the kind of accessibility for me to get games that I have now, because I pretty much had a PlayStation back then and that was it.
Yeah, modern sort of connection speeds and internet capable consoles and all that sort of stuff does change the landscape a lot.
And just games created for multiple platforms, and it's a lot more accessible now. But I'm probably I was more keen on 100%ing and playing platformers that I could know I've covered every inch and that sort of thing, as opposed to the freeform games that I play now, I think. I don't know. What about you?
Well, it's kind of hard to draw that line between tastes that have changed due to age versus tastes that have changed due to the industry and style of games and things that are available now.
True.
So I think that like if I,
back in the Jurassic era, but we only had certain games.
Well, you've actually just hit the nail on the head with one of the things you said, in that you back in the earlier days of, you know, sort of playing as a kid or a teenager, you'd spend a lot more time sort of playing a smaller number of games and kind of, you know, have the completionist approach to them and really, you know, play them until the cartridges would dust, as opposed to, you know, flitting between all of the things that we have on offer these days. And I think the saturation of the market and the industry now is a big factor in that. Like, I think that, and it's a big factor in society in general. Like, we have this instant gratification society now where, like, we've got so many new games coming out all the time that we, you know, just have to have the latest thing, and we're not playing some of our, you know, our loved titles from our childhood just repeatedly until we get sick of them. Like, you know, we would... I think Final Fantasy VII for me is a really good example. Like, back when I was a kid and I played that game, I played that game like multiple times through to completion, and that was, you know...
Final Fantasy VIII for me.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, we're talking like 80-plus hour games here, and being able to do them multiple times and uncover all of the intricate secrets and sort of, you know, hidden Easter eggs and bits and pieces. How the hell do you find, like, yourself motivated enough to do that these days? It just doesn't happen because there's always something to move on to.
Not when you've got, like, choice. There's just so much choice. Back then I had one console and maybe, you know, a small handful of games to play on it. Yeah. So that is what I played obsessively.
Yeah.
But I reckon getting old, it's going to go full circle, at least for me. Like, that's what I think is, like, when I'm old...
Possibly, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I'll just want to, like, have some peace and quiet and just put on Mario 64 and just get all 120 stars and, like, or Banjo-Kazooie or something. Like, I anticipate that when I'm old, I'll sort of want to go back to games I played when I was younger that I'm familiar and comfortable with, and like play those a lot. Like, I'll still play new stuff too, but I can kind of see it going full circle a bit in that way, and just wanting to sort of slow down and take my time more with games.
Well, the nostalgia factor is a thing.
It'll be very soothing.
Yeah, for sure.
Because when you're a kid,
like, if I'm in a retirement home, hook me up with a mini SNES or a mini N64 or whatever, and I'll just play that for days.
But that's the thing. Like, we are old enough now so that sort of stuff coming out, like the mini NES and the mini SNES, that is marketed to us. Like, you know, kids who are picking up those consoles these days to play that, who didn't grow up with it, they're playing those games for the first time, which is great. I think it's awesome that they get to share in sort of, you know, that gaming age of yesteryear. But it's not exactly the same for us, like, because it is purely the nostalgia trip for us. Like, we're going back and playing games that we had a great time with as we were growing up and enjoying those again. So I think that's happening now. Like, I really do. Like, it's a comfort zone for us, even in this day and age. So... Like, I have been playing my mini SNES lately. I will actually admit that. Like, I fired it up last week before I got stuck in the Minecraft hole, and I was playing through Castlevania on my mini SNES because, God, that game is still great, and it was because it was the easy go-to. Like, I just couldn't be bothered doing something complicated. It was a warm blanket, essentially.
Something else I've just occurred to me in the last 10 to 20 years. My change in style, or what I'm playing, is heavily influenced by you guys now. And I think that's because at the end of the day, I get home from work, I don't want to be making any decisions. I don't want to be organizing anything. If someone says, hey, let's play X, I will jump on and I will play it because someone clearly wants to play it with me and they've taken the decision out of my hands and I'm like, yep, cool, done. I'm there. I don't have to think about it. Yeah. It's like the lazy brain at the end of the day.
That's not sort of the case for me. I tend to play, I think, fewer multiplayer games than you guys. Like, I'm less inclined just to sort of jump on and play, just whatever multiplayer is sort of flavor of the month. And I think that's changed for me. I think when I was younger, I was more into multiplayer games and like, particularly when there's a competitive aspect to them. I'm less competitive with my gaming now, or like even going back to like split screen games. Like, I loved GoldenEye and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
But I don't have that same like multiplayer drive anymore, I don't think. And as I get older, I think that's going to continue as well. Like, I can see myself not cutting myself off from online gaming because that's going to be impossible because of the nature of the industry, but like playing fewer and fewer multiplayer games. Well, competitive, I should say, because co-op games are a bit of a different beast. But yeah, especially competitive games, I think I'm going to play less and less as I get older.
Yeah. I completely agree with the competitive stance. Like, I'm the same. I feel like, you know, I have nothing to prove these days. Yeah. It's not like, you know, I've got this youthful schoolyard kind of, competitive streak where I have to best the people that I see on a daily basis and talk shit to them. And at the end of the day, I know that any time I play online multiplayer with Jam, I'm going to get my clock cleaned anyway, so why fucking try? So it's just...
Don't you forget
this
it.
is one of those things, yeah. But, I don't need to have that buzz, though. I'm happy to be competitive against myself. And try and, raise the bar in terms of what I'm able to do and improve my skills sort of ongoing. But probably with the exception of Hearthstone, I think the only reason why Hearthstone's the exception is because it doesn't rely on sort of twitch reflexes and youthful
that's
skill.
The same for me.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You have a bit more time to sort of consider your actions, and it's more of a strategy kind of focus. I enjoy being extremely competitive with that game for that reason, but everything else I really couldn't care. It's not an appeal at all.
And there is the physical factor of aging too that can't be ignored when it comes to online gaming. Your reaction time will slow down, your hand-eye coordination, you'll get joint pain and all that sort of stuff that will make it more difficult to actually compete. That's definitely a reality too.
Guitar Hero is going to be rough.
Yeah.
In the distant future, I'm going to be very sad.
Mm-hmm. Yep, you can't lose your edge on that. That's your thing.
I already have, man. My fingers protest. They doth protest.
Yep.
On the rare occasion I pick up the Guitar Hero controller, it's like, ow, what am I doing?
In terms of the physical change, the genre that's affected me the most in terms of the ability to play, just sort of with the reaction speed and hand-eye coordination, is actually RTS games.
That's what I thought you were going to say. Yeah.
Sort of first-person shooters I've never been especially awesome at. I've always been capable, but never a top-tier sort of player by any stretch. RTS games, though, in my youth, I used to be really fucking good at. To the point where I could easily sort of play at a competitive level. But nowadays, no chance. I'm just not quick enough. So...
Yeah, I think RTS and another genre that gets hit hard by that quickly is fighting games too. I don't think any of us here are really heavily into fighting games, but I know that as an esport, it's like being a gymnast where once you're in your mid-20s to late 20s, it's pretty much over. There's even that little bit of slowdown that happens in your 30s is enough to kick you out of being a competitive fighting game player.
Yeah. So, and it may be partly that games back then weren't quite as reactive in terms of the speed of play as well. Maybe, I don't know. They seem to be a lot more split second these days than maybe they once were. So,
yeah.
I don't know. In terms of changes of tastes and that kind of thing, I think fighting games is actually a really big one for me too. I used to really enjoy fighting games. Now, just don't care for them. Just not interested. So, yeah, it's a weird one.
Yeah. I'm too. I like fighting games. I follow more fighting games than I play. I can watch Evo every year, Capcom Cup. I like Street Fighter and Dragon Ball FighterZ at the moment, but I don't really play them. But I like following them as an esport. So don't actually play them too much then.
Something I wanted to ask both of you about in terms of tastes when it comes to gaming. Has your taste over time changed between playing games yourself versus watching people play games? Because I read an interesting article on this this week, actually, and it sort of mentioned something that I sort of sat back and thought, holy shit, that is actually really true, in that we tend to idolize people who play games these days a lot more than we do than the actual creators themselves. There's a few distinct exceptions to that. You've got your, Hideo Kojimas and your Cory Barlogs recently, and
your auteurs.
Yeah, exactly. Some of your big names, that we know. Because they've become they've become video game celebrities to a greater or lesser extent. But when you look at the number of big names that come with video game sort of media or commentators or, streamers and all that sort of stuff, there is certainly a lot more recognition for that based on, swinging taste shift to people watching games instead of just playing them all the time. So has that ever been a thing for you guys? Have you ever sort of enjoyed spectating more as you've gotten older or less as you've gotten older?
No.
No? Hasn't changed?
I do not spectate. I hardly watch. I appreciate that it's become a huge thing in the community, but if I'm watching someone play a game, I get twitchy because I want to play it. I just don't watch YouTube for that. I mean, one of the only things I stream is Crit Roll because I literally cannot be playing that D&D game with those people.
Yeah.
Everything else is, okay, yeah, I'm going to switch that off because I want to play it myself.
Okay.
So that has changed for me. Like, there are two aspects in which that's changed. One is like live streaming, but the only game I watch at all streaming on Twitch is Hearthstone. I exclusively watch Hearthstone, and that's because I'm into it on like based on quite a competitive level. So I really enjoy staying up to date with like the meta and what decks the pros are playing, and a bit of a community element to that. But that's strictly for Hearthstone. Whereas like YouTube, there's one channel in particular that I watch, which is Super Best Friends Play, which is like 3 Canadian guys, and I've been watching them for like 5-6 years, and that for me is not because of their skill at the game or even the particular games that they play, but because that's more personality driven. Because they're really funny guys, and interests like overlap, and their commentary on the games is good and it's not obnoxious, and so I like following that, and I can definitely see as I get older that is interesting me more. Like sitting back and watching somebody else play a game does have an appeal to me, rather than me being always having to be the one that goes out and buys it. So I can see like more of that as I get older too.
Yeah, my shift has actually been in the opposite direction, strangely. So as a kid, I used to be more than happy to sit next to a friend playing a game and just watch what they were doing for hours on end. Like I didn't have to be at the controls. But these days, if I'm actually in a room with someone playing a game, I feel like I need to be playing it. So
I think physically it's different. Like if I'm in a room with someone, I think I'd feel the same way. Whereas watching it, it's almost like a podcast for me, where I'll put it on and especially with the YouTube one, because it's multiple people playing. It's not just one person. So they're talking to each other, and they talk, but they have like off-topic conversations and that sort of stuff. So it really is more like listening to a podcast or like a radio show with gameplay like happening in front of me. But if someone's in the room with me, then I'm not as keen on it.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
My exception would be watching my brother play games, because he's a bloody savant. Whatever he's playing is just always so interesting to watch.
But that's almost like watching a how-to video in some ways. Yeah.
It's the only reason I know as much as I do about Call of Duty is watching my brother play. But that was also sort of, based on restrictions of how many consoles were in the house, back in the day and whatnot. So it was a bit of a forced patience on my part as well.
Yeah, that's fair. Well, are there any other sort of differing tastes in terms of genres that you guys can point to? Like stuff that you maybe liked when you were younger that you don't like now, or vice versa?
Yeah, just definitely RTS, as you mentioned, fighting games. I'm just way more into turn-based stuff these days. And shooters, I'm more discerning with my taste in shooters, I think. Whereas I used to, I lost interest in a lot of shooters around the time that Call of Duty started blowing up. Like I played World at War, I played Modern Warfare 1 and 2, but then I haven't played like any Call of Duty games since. And I think that, I don't know whether it was specifically Call of Duty's fault, but I got fatigued on shooters around that time. Yeah. And now, it's kind of has to be a special one like Doom or maybe Wolfenstein, something like that to draw me in.
True. One of my biggest sort of shift in taste sort of comes down to the level of patience that I've got for various games as well, and that's the game length. I'm much happier to play a shorter game these days, because I would rather rather engage in more different experiences over shorter individual times than one large experience, where I don't play any other games. So,
do you think that'll be the case when you're old man Luke though, or older man Luke?
It's a good question.
Good distinction.
Yeah, I'm going to say maybe not. I don't know. I think it might depend on what the industry's like at that time, but I suspect I'm not going to be going out and buying new games every week when I'm, a decrepit old man. But
really?
Maybe I will. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe.
See, that's for me, I see myself like if I'm suddenly retired, I just have time. I have time, and I don't think my tastes will change. I think the industry might change and new things will pop up that will interest me or not as they develop, virtual reality and whatnot. Like things are going to be surprising us like forever. But it's just, I don't think it's going to dial down for me. I hope it never does. I love games. I love being surprised and finding new delightful things. I do think difficulty is probably influencing my playstyle more. I want a game to be challenging, but if it becomes so complex that I'm having to die and restart the same section, I lose interest pretty quickly.
Yeah.
But otherwise, I like being surprised and finding new things. I definitely have preferences, and I don't think they'll change. I'm not a huge RTS fan. Shooters, in the middle. somewhere. Love my RPGs. But puzzle games, I love puzzle games. Maybe I'll just get more and more into puzzle games.
I think in terms of managing sort of mental health, we certainly are going to have a lot more tools available to us to stay engaged than the perhaps previous generations have. So
yeah, keep the brain ticking.
Yeah, absolutely. And like all those sort of genres that you just mentioned, like, good story RPGs and puzzle games and all that kind of stuff, like, it's not going to be hard to stay mentally active as long as we're engaging in this hobby as we get, quite a bit older. But as far as the social contact too goes, like, there's nothing saying that we have to continue playing games with our same age group, because we don't already. Like, I'm super, one thing that has changed in the last sort of 5 to 10 years actually is I'm super happy to play games with younger groups of people, because often, like these days, they surprise you in terms of how much they understand and their skill level and that kind of stuff. And yes, in certain circles there's a level of toxicity that comes with that, but again, you can kind of be selective about which groups you engage with and moderate that accordingly yourself. So but there's a lot of good people out there of a much younger age that are playing games that you can have a great time with, because it's kind of the great equalizer in a lot of ways. So yeah
I do worry that there are certain like neurological and chemical changes that will happen to our brains as we get older, where we might not be as like sort of active and pursuing new games and stuff as we would hope. Like we're in that phase of like, I'm never going to become an old person and stop liking what I like. But I reckon that could be a thing that generationally everybody says with their kind of current thing, and maybe we can't help it, and as we get older, our interests will change in certain ways.
So would you kind of compare this to like the older example of like a senior person sort of sitting on the couch and watching their soap operas at the same time every day, to maybe me in 20 years' time playing on the same Minecraft world every day?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking though, is that like, older people settle into routines, their world becomes a little smaller sometimes, and they just like comfortable things, and maybe that's going to happen with our games too. But yeah.
Well, I hope not.
Possibly.
What about sort of content that straight turns you off compared to maybe stuff that you were more accepting of before, or vice versa? Is there anything that really sort of sets you off these days with changing tastes as you've matured, or gotten older? I shouldn't say matured, because that's not going to be true.
Yeah. No.
The only thing for me is perhaps sense of humor in some ways. I think that as I get older, I'm less into like wacky humor. Like I point to Borderlands as an example of a game where I probably would have found that funnier 15 years ago, but it doesn't tickle me as much as it probably used to. And there's that kind of like wacky, zany humor that I'm not as into these days.
Yeah.
And that could change, yeah.
I actually find that overt sexual content is a big one for me. Like, as a kid, I never used to care too much about, games where, like, particularly the female figures in them were just, like, overtly sexualized, like giant jugs and basically just sex objects in the game and that kind of stuff.
The strippers in Duke Nukem, man. I can't.
Yeah, that's
Duke Nukem 3D.
That's an interesting example, because that's kind of that sort of thing too. And I think it was very much acceptable back then in the days of like Leisure Suit Larry and all that sort of style of game. Now these days, it's not. I'm certainly no prude or anything like that. It's just that I think that I'm just not the target audience, and often I'll see that kind of stuff and just think, did you really fucking have to do that? It seems it detracts from the enjoyment. It's not because I feel embarrassed viewing it or experiencing it or anything like that. It's just it's to me it just drops the quality of the product. It's doing it for sex's sake as opposed to actually adding something worthwhile to the game is a turn off for me. Probably more from an artistic standpoint, and I'm a bit more critical.
The flip side is an issue too, though. The whoever being terrified of any sexual themes because, oh my god, sex in games, when you can have mature games with romantic relationships that develop, and it can be an important part of the story, and people like panic stricken. It depends on the game and how they approach it.
That's a whole topic that we could do another time. Is just
it
like
really
sort of sex in games.
But like for me particularly, I don't think my opinions have changed over time. They may in the future, I don't know, but very happy for adults to have access to games with adult themes, as long as it's pretty clear what you're paying for and what you're expecting. Everyone's got their own tastes, so be it.
Yeah, for sure. Well, the sort of artistic aspect was one I was interested to ask you guys about as well. Like, do you think that as you've gotten older, and probably this is through experience with the hobby more than anything else, now because you know what you like and you know what to look for in a more granular sense in terms of, you know what a good video game mechanic is, you know what a good fighting system is, you know what a good sort of, you know, crafting or looting system and all that kind of stuff is, do you find that your experience with video games has changed quite a bit as you've gotten older and you've developed a more artistic appreciation for those elements? Or are you happy just to kind of put the blinkers on and turn your brain off and just have a good time?
I would say in the way that's changed is that I've become self-aware, that I'm recognizing why I appreciate something for what it is, like the specifics, the detail. Before I might have just thought, oh, this is really cool, I like it, it's pretty. You know, whereas now I'll understand that they've used lighting in a really interesting way to draw me into a particular part of the level, or, you know, it's just that sort of maturity of self-awareness and understanding what goes into making a game.
Yeah.
You know, to a basic degree, because I'm by no means a, you know, developer or anything. But yeah, and I think that's what I was saying before. It ties into that. We're going to keep being surprised by clever game devs, you know, introducing new mechanics. Like that wonderful one we saw at PAX last year with the shadows.
Oh, yes.
Shifting the light source in the game creates shadows which you can use as platforms. Like, that's incredible.
Yeah.
It's so novel. And I'm looking forward to those little surprises as people get more and more creative with the Outfall.
No, for sure. What about you, Christian?
I definitely think that I'm appreciating the artistic side of games more, but I don't know how much of that is a consequence of age or rather just the medium maturing, because I think that it's a lot harder to do in games in the 80s and 90s, whereas
Very true.
they are mimicking, or like, I shouldn't say mimicking, but they're taking elements from TV and film a lot more these days as far as direction and acting and story, like a narrative design and that sort of thing goes. So I'm definitely appreciating it more because of that. But I don't think that will really have been a consequence of age so much. I mean, obviously, if I was 10 years old and I was playing like Nier Automata or something with a really interesting narrative structure, I probably wouldn't appreciate it as much. But I think now it's hit a point and it's probably not going to change moving forward.
Yeah, I could see that. You kind of know what you like. You've fallen into that
Yeah.
taste sort of pattern. Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. Also, for anyone who was wondering, that game that Jan was just mentioning a moment ago with the shadows was Projection. So you can go and check that out. Yeah, I was trying to think of it as well. just came to me in a flash.
I was digging through my notes. I was like, where is it?
And I guess the other thing is the big conundrum that we all face as we sort of, you know, get older. Our time available, of course, drops quite a bit. We have adult responsibilities, we have jobs, we have partners, we have all that stuff that comes with you know, getting on. But we have a lot more money. So, you know, time versus money. Maybe when we were kids, we couldn't afford to buy all the games that we wanted. We had all the time in the world to play them to death. But now we have, you know, stacks and stacks of money and end up, you know, starting and stopping a lot of games without actually seeing them through to completion because we just don't have the time.
It's cruel.
Yeah.
It's horrible. I hate it.
Which do you prefer, though? Do you prefer having the time or do you prefer having the money and therefore the range and breadth of experience?
It's balance.
Time.
Oh, everything in balance. Really?
Yeah, give me time. Give me like a couple of games and I'm good.
Yeah.
I don't need a lot of games.
I'm firmly in that camp.
I want to get to the point where I'm sort of financially stable enough that I can cut back from full time, so that I can spend more time on my hobbies, and by hobbies I mean games.
Yeah.
So that's the dream.
If you got to live that dream, though, I suspect that your spending would not decrease in relation to it now.
No. Oh, no. But that's why I need to be financially stable first. I need to be able to fund this habit.
Yeah.
Oh, dear.
All right. Well, maybe just to wrap up the topic, like maybe we could just all give like a couple of sentence snapshot of where you think you're going to be when you're sort of, you know, surviving to 70 or 80 or even beyond if you're lucky enough to last that long. What games are you going to be playing and what's your sort of video gaming pattern going to look like? So, Christian, give us a picture of you at 80 plus.
Me at 80 plus, I really think that I'm going to be plugged into nostalgia in a heavy way.
Mm-hmm.
I can see myself just playing games I played as a teenager or younger, like N64 games, Super Nintendo games, that sort of thing. I don't think that I'm going to stay on the cutting edge when I'm 80. I think that I will slow down, probably still be interested, maybe as you're talking about, maybe watch people playing the newest and flashiest thing. But one thing's for sure is I think it's going to be super interesting because we are the first generation of gamers that will be reaching that age. Like, it's fascinating to me what it is going to look like, whether we are going to have retirement homes full of people playing like God of War and swinging around Wii remotes. I mean, old people already do that, but like just the visuals of it, I'm interested to see what it's going to look like when old people are playing games, like when we're that age.
Whether the environment will sort of evolve to support that kind of activity compared to what you get now.
Like having PC rigs set up and that sort of stuff, or whatever it'll be at the time. Yeah. It's kind of cool.
Yeah. Well, Jan, what do you see yourself doing as a crazy cat lady, old granny?
Something Minecraft-esque, definitely. With Mimo getting lost in the background and me going to look for her. And more RPGs, more, narrative-heavy single-player games, which I get distracted from because life these days. I think I'll have a much greater enjoyment of them when I've got the leisure time to commit to them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That sounds about right. I think that I will probably be playing a lot of games with my grandkids at that point. If I have grandkids, which I suspect I probably will. I don't know.
School them noobs.
Yeah, like, look, I would not be one bit surprised if, in X number of years, my sons are both, both of them, if not one of them at the very least, is, kind of retreading this ground and having almost the same conversation that we're having now about the next generation. And meanwhile, I'm sort of kicking on and just playing with whoever I can get to play with me. So, yeah. My biggest fear is just sort of maintaining that group of peers that are able to sort of connect with you like that, because I would hate to lose that. But by the same token, I know that there's a lot of things that life will throw at us that will make that difficult over time. So, but
but we'll fight it.
Oh, goddamn, yes, we will.
Tooth and nail.
Absolutely. Well, I have a very, very sort of favorite saying that I like to use a lot, which I want to close off this topic with, which I think is very appropriate when it comes to this tonight. What I love to remind everybody is that you don't stop playing games when you get old. You get old when you stop playing games. So remember that, and I think we'll all be right. Yeah. All right. Well, anyway, that is an episode. So thank you very much for coming on this old sort of people future, apocalyptic ride with us.
Geriatric adventure.
Yeah, exactly. we'll see how that actually pans out, and hopefully we live to tell the tale. But in the meantime, if you've got thoughts on what you're going to be doing as a gamer when you get into your sort of twilight years, let us know through all the usual places. So, Jam, where can people get hold of us?
No, I closed the thing. I don't have the. I think it's mail@partyloaded.com. I don't know.
Yep, you had it.
There's that one.
Partyloaded.com.
I don't know the rest.
Well, our Facebook page is called Party Loaded. That one's a tough one. Twitter handle is @PartyLoadedShow. And you can also find us occasionally streaming on Twitch at twitch.tv/partyloaded. And we throw each episode up as a video onto youtube.com/channelendgame as well.
Absolutely.
That.
Yeah.
All of those things.
I'm going to also plug Christian's Twitch channel because he's too decent to do it himself. So go check out Twitch TV /Millpool for all of the Hearthstone Twitch goodness.
It's not that I'm too decent. I just forget. I totally plug my own thing.
That's it. And we'll get some more action happening on the Party Loaded Twitch channel in the next week as well. So, yes. Well, thanks, guys. I hope you enjoyed the chat tonight. And I think this has actually spurred me to fight tooth and nail, as Jan was saying, to lose what we've got now as the years sort of continue. So it's going to be
fight to lose it. Wait,
no,
what?
fight to keep it. Like, we don't want to lose
it. To keep it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Because if we do lose it, it'll be a slow, like sort of gradual and very insidious sort of process. I think we won't realize what we've lost until it's happened.
Nah, mate. If it happens, I'll just be like, Luke, you're out.
All right. Well, in the meantime,
I have spoken.
Why you've got your wits about you? What are you playing in the next week, Jam? What are you doing?
I don't know. Probably Sky Factory. Probably a bunch of Overwatch because I want all of the anniversary content.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, can we make a pledge then to play some Overwatch together this week and also play some Sky Factory together? Because I want to show off my shit to you.
Yes. Oh, yes. Yes, I have not logged on in a few days.
Sweet.
I'm sure it's all different.
Yeah. Christian, come play some Overwatch with us. Sound good?
Maybe. I don't know. My Overwatch enthusiasm's at a bit of an all-time low, but we'll see.
Yeah. What else you got on the boil?
Just probably getting back into BattleTech. Check out that game, a bit of a deeper dive. And I'm always saying I'm going to get back to Yakuza. Maybe this will finally be the week that I get back to Yakuza 0.
Yep.
Fingers crossed.
I should also mention that in 2 days' time, probably by the time this episode goes up, Detroit Become Human will be out. So I'm going to be picking that up and playing that.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Oh, I also have to see if State of Decay 2 is impressing people because so far I have not heard much.
I've heard vastly differing things on that. Like the people who love the shit out of it, but the general sort of gist seems to be that it's not what people wanted. So I don't know.
I want to love it so bad.
If you are the type of person who that kind of misery sim appeals to, maybe it'll be right up your alley. So actually, what's the term I heard today? It was suffer sim. It's a suffer sim. So which sounds hilarious to me. Yeah. Detroit, I was a little down on as well because we hadn't really seen too much about what that game was going to be. But there's some previews that have been coming out over the last few days, which have really perked up my interest again. It looks like that game's got a fair bit more content in it than maybe initially expected. So, I think it's going to be cool. It seems to be revolving around the 3 key characters that we've seen already, but much further beyond those initial scenarios that got leaked a while back. So I imagine that in terms of switching between them, it might be a little bit more like how Grand Theft Auto 5 plays, where you kind of have the 3 main characters that form the narrative and you switch between them.
Yes.
Yeah. So we will see.
Interesting. I did see some ads at the cinema before Deadpool 2. In between trailers and different ads, they had tiny snippets of the Detroit stuff saying, I didn't choose this life, you did.
Yes.
For me, kind of thing.
Those ads are currently all over Twitch at the moment. They're going hard on the marketing.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Cool. All right, well, good stuff to look forward to. Until then, we'll chat to you next week. So thanks, everybody, for listening. And until then, good night.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
The Party Loaded podcast is a Channel Endgame production. For this and more great gaming content, bookmark channelendgame.com.